Welcome back for another episode of Growing with My Fellow Growers. I'm your host, Jack Greenstock, joined as always by an amazing panel. I'm going to pass it over first to Spartan Grown. Welcome.
Thanks, Jack. Hello, everybody. I'm Spartan Grown. You can find me at Spartan Grown on Instagram, all one word with no spaces. And if you don't do the social medias, you can just send me an email at spartangrown@gmail.com. I'm both an organic farmer at home and a synthetic farmer at work, so I can help you out either one.
Glad to have you back. It's pretty crazy to see that before I could even have the YouTube loaded, we've already got Smart Poker and Rowdy 420 and Crack Babies, TWC, a few others already in the chat, firing it off. I'm going over to click over to live chat and there's already 5 messages. It's crazy. Loyal, faithful listeners, very, very happy to have you back. But next up, Kyle Breeder.
Hey everybody. Kyle Breeder here. My new website is up and running, which is purebreeding.com. And I don't know if I made a post earlier. I don't know if you guys have all seen it, but I have our Pure Breeding's first reg seed drop happening on 12/31 at 10 a.m. Eastern time. It's a Cinderella 99 by New England Rock Candy. So that should be it's a really beautiful project that I was on. Pure Breeding on all social media platforms, pure_breeding on Instagram, and feel free to reach out if anybody has any questions.
Seed Person 1 says they just dropped an ace of spades. So I'm not sure if that's one of yours or.
Yeah, that's me and Gnome Automatics, me and Dan. So yeah, that's awesome, man. Keep me, everyone tells me how good stuff is, and no one ever sends me pictures. So I don't know, but send pics.
My last few runs, I've been guilty. I've been very lazy about taking and posting photos. My Instagram is proof of that. It hasn't made any posts there in a long time. But with that said, next up, Dr. MJ.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. MJ Coco from cocoforcannabis.com. I am excited to start popping my own seeds here. We got 2 weeks, a little bit less than 2 weeks until the New Year's Grow Challenge on New Year's Day. So go over, sign up, everybody at cocoforcannabis.com/challenge. Got a big giveaway a couple weeks in, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm excited to be here, and happy holidays to everybody. Hope it's a good show.
Happy to have you back. Almost yelling into the mic as I'm coughing. Sorry about that. I was going to say that I'll try and join this year, but every single year I say that I end up not having time. But I do encourage people to join over at cocoforcannabis.com and do the grow along. I know that we just had a full moon, so a lot of people are popping some seeds if they're like myself, or just happen to line up anyway. But next up, we've got Matthew Gates.
Yeah, hey everyone, this is Matthew Gates. I'm a IPM specialist. It stands for Integrated Pest Management. I recently did a deep dive, a video on Instagram at SyncAngel, but I also edited it and I posted it on my YouTube, which is almost 2 hours of a deep dive for viroids. I know a lot of people are asking about how plant viroids function, especially the hop latent viroid in cannabis. So if you're interested in getting some basic priming information, I go over a lot of details there in that video. That's on my YouTube channel, Zenthanol, which is the same channel that I'm communicating in the chat with.
Was that a introduction to viroid? I think is what I saw it labeled.
Yeah, I labeled it as Intro to Viroids with an emphasis on hop latent viroid. But having said that, there's a lot that we don't understand about viroids, but there's also a lot that we do. So I'm trying to give as much information as I understand, and also that exists currently in updated research and literature and that kind of a thing. They're pretty fascinating replicates.
It is a very interesting science. I know we've talked about it here on the show, but I know you go a lot more into detail about the science and everything over there. So I do encourage people to check that out when they have the time. Next up, I believe, is last but not least, is the American one.
Hello, Jack and panel and everyone in chat. I'm the American one on YouTube, and the American one _with_Akeens on the IG. And it's always good to be here, and I'm looking forward to tonight. Excellent.
I do think I may have skipped Brandon. Brandon, did I give you an opportunity to introduce yourself yet?
It's all good, brother. No worries. I'm Brandon Rust. You can find me on IG at rust.brandon, and there's a link in my bio to my company, Bokashi Earthworks. You can always kind of see what I've got going on through those channels, and my website, bokashiearthworks.com.
I actually am getting very low on my amino not my amino N plus, my micro plus, but I have another sample bottle that you sent me, and I think it is labeled like something plus iron. So I definitely have to reread the messages.
You know what that is? That's a Bacillus subtilis and trichoderma with a iron humic, iron fulvic carrier. So what I did was I did a fermentation with the two species, but before I added the species in the complex carbohydrate, I first added the fulvic acid to the water, and then I added the iron into the water, the iron sulfate, and then I added the complex carbohydrate, the microbes, the two microbe spores, to make a, just a little consortium that's main focus is to help bring up the iron levels, right? Because iron's a photosynthetic nutrient, and a lot of times, all the time, every single time that I've ever taken tissue and sap analysis, iron and copper are always low. And it's because of the redox potential, what happens to them, like from a chemical standpoint in the soil. And so helping to increase the iron availability was the purpose of that product. And I never really did a whole lot of like side-by tests, side-bys and stuff with it. I used it a little bit, and I saw some improvement on the iron uptake. But yeah, that's what that was geared for, that specific bottle.
Definitely interested to put it to use because I'm just re-amending some soil. I got my worm castings. I'm waiting on some micros and other stuff. I think your mic might be over there, Kyle. I'm hearing some echo in the background. But
sorry.
no worries, unless you wanted to jump in there. But I'm definitely, like I said, just looking forward to trying that because I, like Dr. MJ was talking about, I'm just about to get started on a new grow here pretty soon. I was waiting to re-amend some soil, as I've probably mentioned on a few episodes in the past, and I wanted to ask you about that, Brandon, because I definitely remember getting it from you, and I just haven't been able to put it to use yet. So I'm curious to see how it might be able to help, especially with re-amended soil. I kind of use like the build a soil method where he has the craft blend, Jeremy, he's like the main guy over there. And then he also has like I think it's called like the big six, like micronutrients plus humic or fulvic acid. And basically with a little bit of that, and then some worm castings, and also a little bit of Spartan Grown secret sauce with what is it? It smells terrible. Everybody thinks, at least, insect frass, a few other things. But yeah, recommending with that, plus a little bit of Brandon's secret juju over there. I think it'll bring some good results. I'm looking forward to starting things back up again. But Spartan Grown, what do you got going on for the winter? I know you were just talking a little bit before the show about some of Brandon's gear that you've got going on. So maybe we could let the listeners in on that.
Yeah, I've got so much. I'm doing first of all, let me start out with saying I fucked up. So I fucked up, and I put a new veg light in my veg room. I put in a B spec from HLG. And when I did that, so I had two lights in there originally, and I had one set to a flower cycle because it was a stronger light, so it was only on for 12 hours. But the other light, which was a 100-watt light that I had from Spectrum King, I believe, I had that on the veg cycle. So I was hitting them with a shit ton of light for 12 hours and then give them a break with just a little bit of light to keep the light cycle. And I've done that forever. But I finally upgraded my light to a proper light. I put one B spec and took all the lights out of there in there. So it's just one B spec, and I plugged it into the flower light cycle instead of the fucking veg light cycle. So I flowered my entire veg. So now I'm re-vegging them. I'm going to just take cuts. I'm actually tomorrow, I'm probably going to be taking cuts of everything and cloning them, and then run clones against what's in there to see what can go faster. But yeah, so I'm going to reset my flower room. It's going to give me a chance I'm perpetual. So normally I don't ever have a chance of there not being anything in the flower room. So this last flower cycle I have, once I get that out of there, I'm just going to redesign and clean up and maybe upgrade some stuff. So that's exciting. I'm kind of winding down and to give me that time. So I'm resetting my veg, and then in my flower, the last flower cycle that's going right now, I have Limelights from Brandon. I have one of those going. I have 2 phenos of the from 2020 Mendocino, the Snow Cane version 2s, where they used my selection from the F1s to half of it is my selection. They have the other half. Anyway, those are smelling nice, both unique as well from each other. So that's cool. So I'm gonna have to figure out which one I like better after smoking it. And then I have a new strain that was passed to me from I'm just gonna say a buddy in Florida, and it's called Orange Dream Haze, and it's an impressive fucking plant, man. It's a sativa. I've grown it one time before, and it just died. The first plant I've ever grown that just died on me. I think it was some kind of a root pathogen or something, but I mean, it literally just withered up, like dried out, even though it had water on the stem. I've never had a plant do that to me. The only thing I can assume is that it's a root rot or something. So I took that plant and just wheeled that planter out into the into just another space, just to on the other side of the basement, just to, I was disgusted with it, so I just pushed it off to the side. And literally every time I walked past it for a month, I could smell oranges. I'm like, what in the fuck? And so I started breaking off little nugs of it and throwing it in my runs of RSO just to get a bigger terp profile. And, like I like to get that full spectrum oil. But then I got interested because as I was breaking them off, it smelled so fucking good. So I said, fuck this, I'm smoking it. So I trimmed it up. I mean, this thing came down in week 6, I think. So super early. And I smoked that thing, and it smokes fine. It smokes smooth. It tastes fucking great. And it's very like sativa type high, where it's just, it's like, it doesn't give you any sedation, just puts me in like kind of a good mood. So now it's supposed to be about a 9-week sativa strain. So still fast sativa. So I only got her 6 weeks and she was still feeling pretty good. So I cannot fucking wait. And I still have that plant down there. I'm still breaking nugs off it. It's still super orangey. And I let it die on the vine. I didn't give it any kind of special treatment or dry cure, whatever. It just, I don't know. It was really fucking cool. So I can't wait to get this one, which is looking fine now. And we're into week, I don't know, close to about the same time it died last time. It looks fine. So they're going to get to the finish line with it. And I'm excited to smoke that shit. And it grows super fast. It's like it went in small. It went in as the smallest plant, and it's the biggest plant in their room too. It's just like super fast, super hard eater. It may have ran out of nutrients now that I think about it. Maybe it just was so fucking fast. It just was eating the shit out of everything in that fucking pot. And I don't feed in flour. And then what's the other plants like? I'm sorry, I'm getting long-winded here.
No, it's okay.
There's one more. There's another plant I'm just trying. Oh, I have my Bliss Bud 3 going in there. And I have next to that a new pheno of Sparkle Face. So it's not the outdoor pheno. This is one I popped indoor. And so I'm excited to see what that does. It's way smaller. Well, I put that one in the same planter as my Bliss Bud, and Bliss Bud just fucking bullied the shit out of it. So I've got a clone going in veg. I'll give it another chance. But it's kind of a small plant, which surprised me because outdoors it was fucking great.
How long was your B-spec veg in flower for before you realized that they were in
like
flower?
2 weeks, man. They're full budding. I go in there, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then it's like, oh, you dumbass. Fucking everything's budding. I've got shit in solo cups budding. So yeah, that's gonna be a hard reset, man. I'm gonna pop some seeds too, probably here. So I might have just seedlings running my next thing. Who knows? We're just gonna plant count it out. I'm gonna maximize plant count after this harvest comes down, and I'm just gonna pick the 4 best and throw them in flower. It's quick. They'll be short plants, but why not?
I hear it's a little easier to re-veg like the clone than it is like a large plant, but it just depends because you haven't like harvested it like a normal plant would be for.
Well, they're not even
right?
large. So the biggest one was in a 1 gallon pot. And it might have been
interesting.
Might have been 18 inches tall is maybe the biggest plant.
Kyle, you've got a ton of re-veg experience. What would you say? How long is he looking at? You said, I think in the past, it's roughly as long as you went in. That's how long it'll take to turn around, or what do you think
I'd say
about that?
that's a pretty, Yeah, I'd say it's a pretty basic range. Unless you go straight to 24-hour, then you can speed that up by like 30% more than what the time in would be.
And I do that then. I'll just after the show, I'm gonna go down there and just plug them right directly into the wall.
Yeah.
I would just want to have them in the timers. It's a good idea. I didn't even think about that. Just right at 24.
I'm glad I asked because I know that you have legitimately messed around with re-vegging stuff, firsthand experience more than most other people that I've talked to. So it's good insight that'll decrease the amount of time, and it makes sense, I guess. It's like, oh shit, it's fucking lights on all the time. I'm gonna try and veg now, and not have any time to rest and do my flower thing. So I hope that it turns around well for you, Spartan. I have faith that you will be able to get through this.
And, I'm not even mad. I'm taking it in stride, and I'm gonna make a positive or negative and turn it into a positive. It's going to give me a chance to pop new genetics right now too that I couldn't do. And I also spent the weekend cleaning out my 4x8 tent, which I set up. When you get a veg light, it frees up another light, and might as well use that light, right? So now I got a 4x8 tent that I'm going to use half of it. I'm going to use one half just to like clone and then just put like the temperature, the HVAC, we'll call it, heater. And I don't think I'll have to worry about cooling, but fans. And then on the other side, I'll just have a 4x4, and I'm just going to run some autos and cocoa, and just going to run some synthetics. I've got a bunch of like free sample bullshit that's piled up down there, and I just want to get rid of it. And I don't want to dump it out. I always kept it for maybe gardening, but you know what? Why not just run autos and some cocoa and just fucking use that shit up?
I don't see any problem with that. I mean, put it to good use. I've still got some cocoa and some nutrients from some old runs and some free samples as well. And kind of hang on to it as a, sometimes with supply shortages, it's like, you never know, right? So it's nice to be able to have a little something. And if you just feel like changing it up a little bit, experimenting with something new, who knows, maybe one of those things might blow you away with how well it does, or even the genetics that you grow that you weren't expecting. I'm all for popping new seeds as often as possible. I think there's so much good shit out there, and just
that's another thing. That's another thing that another strength of the autoflower is, especially for my situation when I have plant counts to deal with, I don't have to worry about a mother plant or a clone. So that's two plants I don't have to fuck with. I can just pop a seed. I don't have to worry about cloning it or so it's low stress. And I just pop whatever I need to fill my plant count. You know what I mean? If I have a space for 2-3 plants, I'll pop 2-3 and then just get them to harvest, chop them down and reset and just pop more seeds. And I'm really gonna, I've got a bunch of genetics from 2020 Mendocino. So I think I'm gonna start with some of their stuff.
Definitely some really killer genetics from 2020. Dr. MJ, I know that you're only with us for the first hour, so I'm curious. I know you're about to start popping some new seeds, as you mentioned. Did you say which genetics you're gonna be starting off with? And are you doing autos, or are you gonna be growing photos?
Probably going to be growing photos. And no, I haven't decided yet. I've been talking to a couple of people about maybe running some seeds. I don't know. It's still open, but I got to make up my mind pretty soon because it's like in 13 days.
Let's do this, a little bit live. If I had to, question you on the spot.
Yeah, there you go, Jack.
No, not force you to pop the seeds, but if you were forced to make a selection or even just consider one, like, do you have a top 3 or top 5? You've got a seed vault somewhere sitting around that you're like, I'm scratching my head thinking this might sound good.
Yeah, I have a bag of seeds in my refrigerator, my cooler full of seeds. And there's some things in there that I always wouldn't mind growing, but I am thinking about running something new maybe, but I got to get on it, like I said, because it's like less than 2 weeks. I don't know what I would go with from my current stash. I'd hunt around, maybe a white widow, maybe something. Maybe I'd grow out with some New England rock candy. I still have New England rock candy seeds. So
I was just thinking about that too.
Yeah, maybe I should grow out New England rock candy. I also have the Afghan cherry seeds. I was just smoking some Afghan cherries the other day too. And I'll tell you, like, I mean, there were 2 plants today when I grew that last time. And I mean, one of them was much better than the other one. And so I didn't smoke much of the other one. And I saw jars and jars of it left over. And now that I haven't had a harvest since like March or April, my last harvest was in April. So I'm kind of like finding my way back into some of these jars that have been kicking around for a while. And that now, like, I don't know, it's been 2 years, almost 2 years. That Afghan cherries is like really a happy, feel good high. I was really liking it.
Yeah, it's yeah, and I think it was Chef. Well, Chef, and I've gotten some people from other people that have like had I don't remember what, some kind of arthritis, or I don't remember what they're having issues sleeping, him and his wife. And I've gotten a few emails from random people saying that like it's just helped with like pain. It's helped with like you said, it's just all different kind of people just had really good responses with that cannabinoid.
They definitely were different though. And it was such an interesting plant. I was pulling it apart again. Like the whole flower structure and the Afghan cherries was really interesting. Kind of a high leaf ratio, but really dense flowers. It was really kind of a pain in the ass to trim, but in the end, and especially now, I'm like really glad. I only got like 1 jar of that left now, and I'm like, ooh, this is good. I'm gonna ration this a little bit more.
I still got the mother too. My best friend has it. I don't have the cut, but the original cut that created everything is still alive. So I might have to dive back in there.
And New England rock candy was, for a while, that was just sort of like my everyday smoke. I really liked it until I started burning through it all. I still have like 2 nugs of it. I'm one of these people, I really have a hard time. I know Jack like saves a nug from all his stuff until like his 420 celebration. Like I save a nug, like the last nug from like every plant I've ever grown almost. I like have a hard time smoking the last of it. So that's what I'm down to with the New England rock candies now. I think I like 2 nugs.
It's really cool, man. I've heard like people like someone that Spartan knows is like somehow smoking on it and reached out to me. Like people like are somehow it's gotten around because I've been like someone's uncle's brother's cousin has a cut. I don't even know how they got a cut from somewhere. And it's just like everyone's and I'm actually doing so I have like 75 clones of rock candy because they were going to go somewhere, but things kind of changed. But I'm going to be making another version of them soon because it's just been, I think you said probably around 2 years since I've had them available. So I think it's going to be a good thing. Yeah,
well, it was like 2 years ago that we got the seeds. Then we grew them out in that New Year's Grow Challenge in, what was that, 2020 New Year's Grow Challenge.
But so, yeah, I ran out shortly after. So I mean,
I'm not supposed to. So yeah, maybe I'll do that. I don't know. I'm keeping my options a little bit open. I am thinking I'm just going to go in a 4x4 tent. I was thinking about setting up a 5x5 for the New Year's Grow Challenge, but I think I'm going to go with the 4x4 tent, and I don't entirely know what else I'm going to do with that. But I already have a 4x4 tent, so that makes that part easier.
When you set up the 4x4, do you just condition the room outside of it and leave everything outside it, and just like maximize that 4x4 space, or do you have to squeeze equipment in there too?
We got to squeeze the light.
Well, yeah, I know that.
Yeah, but no. Yeah, exactly. It's where my other tent now is set up in the spare bedroom. And I imagine I'll continue to use that room for the 4x4, although I do also have office space in my office, but I don't like having it. Now that once I moved that tent out to the spare bedroom, I was like so happy to get it out of here. So yeah, that room is climate controllable, and you know, we've talked about the weather here. I live in North San Diego County, and it's pretty much a matter of sort of occasionally opening the window, I imagine, when it gets hotter. Right now, it's like nothing. It's fine. It gets a little bit too chilly for them during the day a couple of times. So it's getting, but really not during our day, which is their night. And it could be warmer at night. But other than that, there's not really a big issue with conditioning the air. It's pretty much perfect.
That's awesome. Jack, your shirt is fucking me up today, man. Is that a space shirt or something?
It's got stars on it. I don't know. My wife just got it for me. There's also a penguin on it, though. So I don't know what he's doing.
Oh, I didn't see this. Okay, I was lost in space the whole time.
He's just trailing over here. But
all right, I see him now.
But yeah, as far as damn, I lost my thought. We were just talking about Dr. MJ's. So you guys were talking about tents, and he said the equipment that has to be in there is a light, and I kind of like laughed at that. But then I see AC Infinity is now making lights, And I think one of them has like a little square cut out of the center. And, it's because I don't think they need it. And maybe that wasn't AC Infinity, but I know that they're making tents now. And it made me think, like, are we going to get to a point where tents are going to start having lights that are built literally to be fixed at the very top of the tent, and they almost will like form a seal that perfectly fills the entire space with however many diodes they need per that grow space, because AC Infinity makes the tent, they make the light, they make the fan.
Yeah.
So they'll
That would
know.
be pretty nice, man. That would be awesome though, because I mean, I don't know about other people, but I struggle. I don't struggle, but it's kind of a pain in the ass to get that light to be literally like within a half an inch or an inch to the top of that tank because of the poles that are hanging down 3 inches below where you build the kit, So like if they could have something like that, that'd be pretty sweet, where it's like
how badass if the diodes were actually in the actual ceiling.
Yeah,
in the
You
cloth.
can plug the
like
freaking
diodes.
tent in.
I
They'd
wouldn't
just
want
be-
them necessarily in the cloth, but yeah, I'm liking this idea of mounting a light right at the ceiling, seal the rest of it, and have an extraction fan come out through the middle.
yeah.
I am a
Interesting
nerd
thought.
who raises and lowers his light. I know that a lot of people like to put it up to the top and just let it, you can use a dimmer and like crank it or dial it down. But I do see the benefit of hanging it at a perfect hanging height. But I do think that if you made the tent a certain size, if it's a 5 or 6 foot tall tent, you could, with the LEDs now and the, limited amounts of loss, they're so efficient and the reflection is so efficient that I think in the smaller tents, maybe it would even work in the bigger tents. I don't know. But
Yeah.
it's going to be really interesting if they start going with
It would
that sort
work
of
better
concept.
in bigger tents. Yeah, the whole idea of ceiling mounting your lights, it works fine as long as you have enough light and either a big enough space like a huge warehouse or reflective walls totally surrounding your space. But when you have a light that distributes the light well, like a bar array or one of these square shaped fixtures, and you're getting it right out to the edge, like the fixture itself runs wall to wall inside your tent, the light's already well distributed. And it pretty much doesn't matter how high you hang the light at that point. It doesn't really change the PPFD. Because if you think about having like a sensor, I don't know, 3 feet underneath the light that's like wall to wall inside a tent, right? It's getting a lot of light pretty much equally from all of the bars. And the light's going to be spread out really evenly inside that space. So no matter where you had that sensor, like in the middle or out towards the edge or something, it would be pretty much the same density. And there's always going to be a little bit of a drop off as you move towards the edges. But as you move the sensor closer to the light, you get it closer to some of the LEDs and the angle from the others becomes worse. So as you get more light from some of the LEDs, you get less light from others. And it basically, that's one way to think about it. It won't change the total amount of density that's hitting any spot within that area. The other way to think about it is like once the light's perfectly spread out, there's no place else for it to go other than sort of like back towards the middle again. Normally when we raise a light, the only reason that the density decreases is because the density spreads out towards the edges. So as you raise a light and there's like, say, not enough light, then the hot spot from the middle will go down, but the edges will actually start going up as they're able to get more light from the whole fixture instead of sort of a bad angle being over against a fixture that's really low to them.
Interesting. Did you see the recent Micro Sandlight review that he did where he got 3 fixtures from them and he tested all 3 of them in a 5x5?
No, I didn't see that.
It was interesting to me because I think he angled the ones on the outside slightly in and got a really fantastically, like it was like a 2.55 reading at the canopy when he did with the far red boost and everything. But it was a interesting review for sure. But I wanted to do a little bit of a breakneck change to some IPM stuff because I got a good review from one of our listeners. I won't say their name. I believe that they're in a red state, but they used the Amazing Dr. Zymes as well as a predator mite. I can't recall exactly which one, but I want to say Neosilius cucumeris perhaps, or Californicus, but it got rid of their spider mites. So hats off to them and cheers to you on your victory and getting over one of those pests that a lot of people get really frustrated with. And I've even seen some people, restart their entire grow over spider mites. So cheers to you on beating that. And I wanted to pass it over to Matthew Gates, maybe get a little bit of a IPM update and see if there's any new and pressing information or just a I know that we talked a little bit last week about how things are coming in from outside right now. And what are you seeing on the IPM front?
Well, I did make that video like I talked about recently, and because of that bias, I think that's been on my mind quite a bit. One of the things actually that I felt was really interesting to find out, and actually it's actually published research from a couple of years ago, but people don't talk about it often. The venerable Kevin McKernan shared it on his Instagram.
I was just about to bring that up. I was literally pulling it up on Instagram as you were. That's crazy.
No, it's not crazy, Jack. It's the algorithm. No, I'm kidding. No, but it's true. I'm sure you saw the same thing I did, which was that, which I put in my video as well. Because I had actually looked at it when I was looking up all of the viroid research that I could, and the payoff for everyone who's wondering what they're talking about is viroids can be transmitted not just through plants, but apparently plant pathogenic fungi as well, and cyanobacteria. And this is pretty interesting because for a long, long time, since viroids have been discovered, they're basically only really known in plant hosts. And people can make the argument that hepatitis D is like a viroid with a encapsulation, but I think that's maybe a little semantic. Because there's also RNA viruses too. But I want to talk a little bit about viroids for those who might be curious, if you think that's useful.
No, I think it's absolutely useful. And I'm struggling a little bit to find his post because he has multiple pages of medicinal genomics, as well as Kevin McKernan. And he also posts some like political stuff that's not at all cannabis or science related. So I'm trying to make sure that I don't share some stuff that will get the people all heated up in the chat unnecessarily.
Yeah, well, it should be a recent post. I think it might be on his personal account. Well, I have it on my YouTube channel. I could share screen if you're having trouble.
Yeah, I've got the share screen enabled for anybody. So if you find it before I do, the one that I saw and was actually thinking of, there was a plant with like hole punches taken out of it. And then he had written up some stuff, but there's also a more recent one that looks like some sort of study. It says symptomatic plant viroid infections and phytopathogenic fungi.
That's it.
Yeah, so that is definitely interesting post that they made as well. I'm not able to find the other one that I was talking about with the hole punch right now, but we could definitely talk about that. And if you want me to, I could share the screen and we could have a little discussion about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, I'll do that here.
For those who don't know, Kevin McKernan 73 is the guy who runs Medicinal Genomics. They do not only like cannabis sex testing, but also genomic sequencing. He's done like the Jamaican lion, which helped break one of those big sweeping patents that I talked about in the past, because people were trying to claim that if it was like a type 2 plant, which is like a CBD dominant, and it had any terpene that was like not myrcene, that they claimed it under this patent. And this actually was something that broke it. But he shares tons of good scientific information about cannabis. And I think this was a very interesting update on what we've kind of all been learning more about, I think, this year with the viroid.
So basically here I have this the video in front. You guys can see it, right?
Oh, I need to stop sharing, I think, so that you can share.
Oh, I see.
Oh, I see you.
So
there we go.
Yeah, so this is just taken from the video. I could seek through the video here. I do have it set up so that different sections are viewable, so you can kind of be particular, because it's kind of long. I don't expect people to listen to somebody talking to them for 2 hours straight necessarily about such a dry subject. But basically, for those who don't know, viroids are these really interesting things. Sometimes they've been just called subviral, or they've gone, they're virus-like and such like this. So the main difference between a viroid and a virus is that a viroid doesn't have like a capsid, which is this protein coating that a lot of viruses have that protects them Obviously, there are proteins that make up the capsid, but viroids are really interesting because they're basically just a weirdly folded in RNA strand, which basically means that they don't encode for any genes at all. So like viruses even have genes, right? There are genes that they code for when they replicate, and then when they take over a cell, they get the cell to make those parts basically for them, right? Through replication and all that translation machinery. But and I'm trying not to be too technical here. trying to paint a picture without being super technical. But basically, the virus goes in. It's genetic material, whether it's an RNA virus or a DNA virus, basically gets co-opted by the cellular machinery. It replicates itself. That stuff does, and then you got more viruses, and then through various ways, depending on the kind of virus, it gets to other cells. Plants are interesting because plant cells are all connected through the plasmodesmata, which is theorized to be how viroids get through. So viroids don't even have that shell, and they don't even encode for any proteins, no genes, and yet they cause a lot of problems for plants, despite plants and also animals having like a pretty sophisticated antivirus system, which is also kind of nascent. A lot of the research about it too, as well. But the way that they work is that you can kind of see in this picture. So a little viroid comes in like this. Parts of it get so you see this like funny little like structure it has here. Well, basically that keeps it from being bound with a bunch of the sort of enzymes that are oftentimes in like plant cells that would bind with it and then cleave it and then break it apart and kill it, essentially neutralize it. But what ends up happening actually is that particular RNA, so like polymerase, for example, which is an enzyme or a machinery, or I'm trying to be anyways, I'll not get into the details. Basically, specific things come in and recognize the viroid as like messenger RNA, which is used to create genes. So it takes it in, and then it turns it into a double strand, because it's basically like a little you can think of it like a zipper. Basically, it feeds in one direction, a specific direction, and then it codes it. And so then that becomes something else. And then also a bunch of other little small RNA fragments get made as well. And this is where it becomes really problematic, and it causes a lot of its damage, because what happens is that even though viroids don't code any genes, those little strands of RNA, well, they can go and they can run around and they can bind with other strands, other parts of genetic material. And what happens is that when they do that, it's called, in some cases, it's post-transcriptional gene silencing, which means that at a certain stage in the gene or in the protein creation, right, that the cell is making all these different proteins for cellular structure, for secondary metabolites like creation of cannabinoids and terpenes, genes related to leaf structure, things, all kinds of things. Well, what happens is that the RNA fragments, they bind to these other RNA pieces, and they prevent them from being able to be coded. And so that's why you see all the problems that viroids cause, because like the modeling that you see when leaves change like a weird color, when they're stunted, like what hop-latent viroid does to cannabis, these come from, this sort of interruption of normal genetic processing. And when viroids replicate themselves, they do this a lot. They just keep doing this and doing this. And that's why you kind of get this sort of sometimes even localized stunting. But then over time, the viroids will move through the plasmodesmata, we believe, and then it just kind of like continues on from cell to cell. That's why it's so pernicious. And
not to interrupt, but to couple that with cannabis, that's just short cycle plant. It's not something you might notice in the first cycle or the second cycle, but then it expresses itself by the third cycle. It's multiplied enough to really start affecting a lot of the plant.
Exactly. No. You're totally right. And so that's one of the main problems is that as a short cycle plant, like you say, and also in nature, it's hard. We don't really know. Like I've seen some discourse. People are, and I think I've talked about this on the show too a little bit. I feel like people are a little bit dubious about like the legitimacy of hop latent viroid as a threat, as well as sort of how it affects things and how you can treat it. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about a little bit about how viroids like kind of act, because you can run into a problem where, because somebody asked me, oh, could, if you had a good microbiome, operative word being good here, if you had a microbiome that could somehow attenuate some of these problems, would that be enough? Maybe it's possible, but what you might also be doing is you might just limit some of the negative effects of the viroid without actually getting rid of it. And there are also other techniques that people might do. I've heard people say that they apply certain microbes or they apply certain substances and the plant kind of recovers. And what I'm afraid of is that maybe you didn't actually treat the problem, you just treated the symptoms and still have the viroid inside. It's not magic, but viroids, they are able to reside in their host for a long time. Certain viruses certainly are able to do that as well. And this is also from the same post that you were talking about, this research report, Jack. And yeah, so in here they talk about how they were able to find these three fungal pathogens. So Cryphonectria, parasitica, balsamali, and Fusarium graminearum, which is this last one here is a Fusarium species, and Fusarium is everywhere. So it makes me kind of anxious that Fusarium might be a vector potentially. More research is needed, but certainly Fusarium is a major problem in tons of different plants. So they were able to show in controlled settings that these viroids were able to horizontally transmit through what's called hyphal anastomosis, which is, I think, how the cells sometimes you'll get hyphae that like fuse together, and I believe that's the case, but don't quote me on that. My fungal physiology is not where it should be. And the other thing is that it can move bidirectionally between the plant and the fungus. So that could make it a very what's called a competent vector. So it's just kind of a thing that I'm a little bit afraid of in the cannabis space. Some viroids are even able to work as enzymes themselves, the sort of hammerhead ribozyme we see, where they can cleave RNA just by itself, just by its structure, which is pretty freaking amazing, which could also make it an even bigger threat. I don't think hop latent viroid does this. I think this is the Absunaviridae.
Is this related in any way to what they're using to do like CRISPR? It seems like the same kind of action or mode of action or whatever.
Sorry to cut you guys off. Can I just give Brandon a moment to say his goodbyes, unless he's already jumped out of the Zoom?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know if I seem to already leave. I think he may have. Cheers to Brandon Rust. You can find him at Bokashi Earthworks or Rust.Brandon. Sorry.
Oh, no, not at all. I didn't want to sort of bogart the conversation. But to answer your question, Spartan, it is kind of like that. In fact, CRISPR, maybe MJ Coco can, I don't know if if you know about this very much yourself, but isn't CRISPR based off of a bacterial system? I just want to fact check myself, somebody who might know.
Sorry, yeah, my mic was on mute. The sort of novel thing about CRISPR is that you can select very precisely where it will go in and insert other genes into the sequence. So it's basically the ability to harness that trait from a bacteria to encode a sequence exactly where you want it. It used to be very hit and miss in genetic engineering to insert genes into the DNA of other organisms. They literally did some of it with like shooting them through with like on projectiles into the nucleus of cells and to try to get the DNA to incorporate. And there'd be a lot of errors and the gene wouldn't end up in the DNA where you wanted it to. And so what CRISPR did was make it much more precise to be able to exactly sort of select that. And to the extent that this is also selecting a very specific place along the sequence to clip and insert or start reading, it would operate on a similar principle.
Yeah, in fact, one of the things I talk about in the video, and I was trying to find an example of it, but I hit here onto a sort of similar subject, so I'll work with that. But apparently, like bacteriophages, which are viruses that specialize on bacteria, they a lot of times they actually encode for some of the genes that make bacteria, even beneficial bacteria that we use in agriculture. And I would expand that not just to commercial strains, but also things that, you know, we would find in the wild, right? Because this is all happening regardless of us. They actually encode genes that make them like virulent, or encode them different toxins that make them effective as like pathogens of insects or other microbes, not as pathogens, but even just as a competitor. So like even in some cases, viruses and viroid, maybe not viroids so much, but there is some examples of viroids. I want to be clear, but we just don't know them very well and how it operates. But certainly with viruses, there are cases where they can make some of the other microbes we use actually work better, or even for plants for that matter. In the same way, you know, I've talked about this a little bit before, but there's examples of mycorrhiza that can make virus that can facilitate viruses in plants rather than making them more resilient, which I find is always kind of a sort of a shocker to people. This is from a research report, which I think I cite later on in this presentation.
I wanted to live fact check you on the CRISPR. First of all, just reading off of the Google search, CRISPR is a acronym which means clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeats, which I never knew. It's a family of DNA sequences found in genomes of prokaryotic organisms such as bacteria and archaea. And it says CRISPR are found in approximately 50% of sequenced bacterial genomes and nearly 90% of sequenced archaea.
Yeah, those repeating palindromes were the sequence that originally got CRISPR identified in the first place, that there was these repeating patterns, and in between those repeating patterns were snippets of, if I'm getting this right, of pathogenic DNA, and that those snippets of the DNA were being inserted so that the host would be able to recognize that specific invader if it like invaded again. So there was a mechanism for taking those little snippets of the DNA and encoding them with those repeating palindromic sequences at the beginning and the end of it, which was the signal that the researchers noticed that pattern and trying to figure that why there was those palindromes, like a sequence that read one way and then this other thing, and then that exact same sequence that opened it closed it in reverse.
I really appreciate the live fact check, Jack, and I think you are right there, Dr. MJ. It's like you know, horizontal gene transmission, right? Like bacteria, this is how they, maybe not through this exact system, but certainly they're exchanging DNA all the time, and even with hosts for that matter, which is what I was referencing earlier. Sometimes
the revolutionary aspect of this was just how precise it was, and the ability to sort of use that and harness that to insert other kinds of genes where researchers wanted them to. But yeah.
So like, for example, here in this this table, it gives examples of various plant families, sort of fungi, and several of these people have encountered before, I'm sure, in commercial consortia, like this Glomus massiae, which is now a new name, Funelliformis massiae, and also Rhizophagus irregularis. Come on, most people have, or in Glomus enteridices, right, formerly. people encounter this all the time as a mycorrhizal supplement. Here are examples of viruses that where they had effects that were positive. So they decreased the virus titer, which means the amount of detectable virus material, milder symptoms. But there's also examples where these same or different fungi, rather, in cases of plants with viruses, where they increase the virus titer when they're present, or cause there to be more severe symptoms. And it's through a great complex series of factors, which I don't think we always understand totally anyways. But I bring it up because, I guess maybe I'm a broken record, but these interactions are not always as predictive as we would like them to be, and we can't always assume that they're going to act the way that we want them to be. Yes, I don't think you can see this because of the subtitle, but mycorrhiza induced susceptibility is what's called if you want to Google it yourself. But anyway, so viroids are interesting. Viroids are hard to kill, especially in the host. Don't use alcohol to try to disinfect them. That's one of the biggest questions people have when it comes to how can they protect themselves from transmission. Viroids are mechanically transmitted for the most part. There's contention that other organisms like the fungi I talked about earlier, and possibly even insects, can serve as vectors naturally. There's a lot of contentious research about that, so we don't really know to what extent. But when it comes to humans, the major way that we transmit them is by having the plants touch each other when one's infected and we don't know it. It can also happen through taking cuttings, like we've talked about before. And the way that you can get rid of that is by using some sort of a sterilant. A lot of people like to use a 10% solution of bleach. There's also products like Virkon S, which we talked about in the chat of this video. And I also bring up some other examples from a research report about controlling viroids. Was it this one? No, it was not. In other plants, for that matter. So anyways, I think that's enough I have on viroids. I think I've spoken my piece. If you're curious about more information, this is the part I was talking about. Yeah, here. Phages have also been implicated in the defense phenotype conferred by certain bacteria to their arthropod hosts even. So you got bacteria, look, if you think the microbiome is your own weapon, if you don't think plants have their own and insects that eat the plants have their own, that make them also, robust in the ecological sense, then you don't understand ecology. You don't understand that things are very, very complex. Just because you have a nice and in your opinion biodiverse microbiome, it does not at all guarantee that the effects are going to be predictive, or that another organism with its own microbiome can't come in and upset that balance. I guess that's the thing. Don't rest on your laurels when it comes to the natural world, because you will be in trouble. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say, really. And if you're interested in more, you can check out this video, which is again Intro to Viroid Biology with emphasis on hop latent viroid. And
I have one question for you, Matthew, just
sure,
so you can make me not sleep again, I'm sure. But so what exactly attracts a viroid to the general area of the plant to begin with? Is there some kind of signal that they somehow ride the waves, or is it just a random happening and they're fucking everywhere?
This is the main question that I have for how, is it a natural population in cannabis, and also hops for that matter, presumably at least hops, right? So viroids are, we don't really, so probably there's a vector. Probably there are, like we were saying in the thing, it's not like it gets on the air and travels that way, like an aerosol. As I understand it, the main way that we encounter it is through horticultural techniques. And in nature, the way that it probably vectors other plants is through natural vectors, like maybe insects. There's an example of peach aphid being shown, I think in laboratory settings, to be able to uptake and then vector a viroid. I think it was potato spindle viroid, which is one of the first ones. I think is the first one ever documented. So there probably is something like that going on. But we don't really know how common it is. And, know,
So
how
let me-
viable they are. Yeah.
So what about this? When I'm applying beneficial mites, we'll say, to my plants, how much of a chance is it that I'm also applying potential viroids to my plants?
We don't know.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Can a mite bite one plant and then spread it through to another?
That would be
Yeah,
the question. Well, usually
Yeah.
these, well, like with the predatory mites, for the most part, they're usually not feeding on plant material so much. Pollen would be one example where they could. Oh, and some viroids can also be vertically transmitted, seemingly. So, like hot plate and viroid, although it seems like that's at least in laboratory conditions, it's kind of a low percentage, single to low double digits. And I think there's a particular research report everyone likes to cite, which escapes me at the moment. But yeah, that's actually a good question. And I've heard that before as well. Because if it can be mechanically transmitted just from the leaves touching each other, could biocontrols also vector them, right?
Exactly. And then we have to go to insectaries and test these, every random sample of insects for viroids.
Yeah, right. Well, it would probably be, I mean, to its credit, if it was a viroid that was affecting the host plants that they had the prey on, if they're using that kind of a system, they would probably find out if the plants had symptoms.
You think
probably-
you think these insectaries are giving a damn what the plants are looking like that they're feeding their mites to? I don't think so.
I think that, well, I know for a fact that at least one of them is pretty persnickety about all kinds of variables that you wouldn't necessarily
Okay.
consider. But you're
Well,
right.
Which
Like,
one is that? Which one is that?
My opinion would be copper
Okay.
biological systems. They're like the granddaddy of the biocontrol space, and they've been in it for probably longer than anyone else, is my understanding, and they're pretty detail oriented. They're Dutch, so. But you're right. Like, I mean, that doesn't mean that things can't escape them, and it certainly doesn't mean that I haven't had disagreements with some of the salespeople over the years. With certain assertions.
They treat us right at work, so I'll give them a thumbs up. They treat us right.
Well, there you go, at least, right?
I'll say this: there's somebody in every field who's just grinding their ass off to do the very best, and if you look around hard enough, you'll find somebody who's doing it well. And with that said, I want to pass it to Kyle Breeder because he has to jump out, and then after him, Dr. MJ is going to give his final thoughts and shoutouts as well.
Yeah. Sorry for cutting it short, you guys. It's I live in Massachusetts, so I'm getting old and I gotta wake up early. But I have some stuff to do, so sorry. But yeah, if anyone's looking for feminized seeds, if you don't already know, I have a website, purebreeding.com, pbreeding.com, pure/breeding.com, and predicatedbreeding.com. They all lead to one place. I don't have many varieties on there now, but December 31st at 10 a.m. I'm dropping our first reg seed line, which is pretty cool. Pretty excited about that. And I guess it doesn't hurt to say it now. So I actually sent Mr. Soul himself New England rock candy, and he has my cut, and we're in the process of doing a collaboration together. So that to me was like basically on one of the toppest tiers I could probably try and reach for me in regards to like trying to work with people. So that's cool. And yeah, so just be on the lookout for the new drop, and just really excited about how things are going. And I'm glad that we're all doing well, and we're all kind of still healthy and alive from all the craziness that's going on in this world. And I'm just happy to be here, man. So take care, everyone.
He's a living legend, man. So I'm happy you're getting to do some work with them, and it's really cool. So thank you so much for joining us, Kyle. And next up, we've got Dr. MJ.
Yeah, I got about 15, maybe 20 minutes before I really have to cut out. I got to go to a holiday dinner. I'm on the West Coast, so we haven't even eaten dinner yet.
I know my wife's
Kyle's going to sleep. I'm like, wow.
I'm getting ready for dinner too. We've got
so I'll stick around. I want to hear. I saw Weed Never Killed Kenny jumped in. I'll stick around for another 15 or so. I'll let you know when I got to get out of here.
Personally, as a South Park fan and just somebody who appreciates creative names and clever names, that is got to be one of my favorite names from the chat. So welcome, We Never Killed Kenny.
I've actually been around the community for a while. I was Cannabis Flower for a while, if you remember my name.
I do
But
remember.
I just recently changed it, maybe like a month or two ago. I don't know. But yeah, I feel like I need a change. I feel like everybody was having the trouble saying my name, but it was all right. Yeah, this one, long time listener, big fan of the show. Like I was telling Dr. Coco before, I run his mix. Had great success my first go around. So now I feel like I'm advanced. So now I'm running a Coots mix and a sip.
You're speaking to my heart, man. The two things that I like very much, very successful in the past for me, and still kind of running similar. What genetics are you running in that Coots mix and sip?
So I have a few varieties. I have a Lumpy's apple fritter and a dog walker cut. And then I have some seedlings they're from Mystic Marks, and they are landrace times unicorn poop, I believe. Yeah.
Landrace from where?
Caribbean landrace. Yeah.
So Robert's iPhone has been trying to join. I'm not sure who Robert's iPhone is. If you DM me in the chat, I'd be more likely to join you. I'm going to add Okie Grower because I recognize that name. But sorry, cannabis, go ahead.
I just want to show off my bed here. It's a soil bed. It's a 200-gallon soil bed, but it's also a sip. Let me just turn that.
That's awesome, dude.
It's a cool looking bed. Yeah, look at this thing.
I've seen this. I actually follow you on Instagram, I believe, because I see you build. I saw you building this, and it looks great. All the living.
So the cover crop is bloom.
Oh, we got some mic static.
I think you might be bumping your mic with your hand or something.
Yeah, my bad. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
How are the layers separated on the bottom to keep it out of the water?
Just a smart pot.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a pretty durable smart pot. Honestly, it's fabric. It's pretty tough.
That looks really thick.
Yeah, but it's a 200-gallon. This fills a 5x5. Yeah, so I've already planted these two, but I'm gonna be planting my seedlings once they show sex, like around it.
Is that basil in there too?
Honestly, it's the 12 seed cover crop.
Okay.
Build a soil. So it's sweet. A bunch of varieties in it. Yeah. But yeah, I got a bunch of my seedling.
Oh, nice.
How many cannabis plants do you plan to do when it's fully flowered?
I'm hoping at least 4, depending on which shows sex, maybe more. So at least 4 for sure. But I'm hoping around 8.
Nice.
But yeah, this is the apple fritter. This is dog walker. They've been doing great. I do use foliars every day. If I try to do a soap nut foliar, if I'm going to do a foliar. If not, I got full power with fulvic acid.
That's
and great. Then I use aminos. I just got aminos. I just did a foliar with the aminos.
All good stuff.
Yeah, and I got TM7 Cytoplus from BioEgg. And then I also use LAB twice a week foliars.
Nice. To use any of that, you should put a little bit down that tube once in a while too. That'd be good.
For sure. I actually measured it just for that. So that's 31 gallons that res holds.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
That's huge.
You don't have to water very often.
Yeah,
the one thing I would say is I'd remove some of those lower leaves on. I think you said it was the
apple fritter.
Apple fritter, yeah.
So I was battling a nitrogen deficiency for a while because it's a fresh mix, very fresh. So I agree.
Brandon has some stuff. I really like his. It's called Amino N Plus. It's like a soy-based amino, and it's water soluble, and it gets you pretty quick nitrogen availability. I don't know if you're.
I've been just using that too. I've just been trying that too, and I like it as well.
I love foliar sprays. And this is a hobby for me. So anything that gets me in the garden. I run a Coots mix, so it's very hands off. I'm in the sip too. So
hey, man, you're talking my language, man. I do very similar.
Well, it's beautiful. I mean, mostly all green and lush and healthy. That's just the one spot is that lower half, and it might not.
Yeah.
at this point, I would just say more for the airflow purposes, even than the nutrient. But the top half looks extremely happy and healthy. So.
Oh, yeah, yes, it is very healthy. I think that for me, I think that's the fulvic, and that's really, set it off.
What kind of lighting?
This is actually a Bloom Plus. I'm actually underlit. It's a Bloom Plus 4000. It's rated. They say it's 4 5x5, but really maybe a 4x4. If you look at their
pull
bar
400
charts,
watts or something like that.
Yes, yeah, 400. Yep.
They make good lights. I mean, my buddy Eagle Gardens has used them for a little while and had some great success.
The only
with them,
thing about so they just like I said, they said it's for a 5x5, but it's not. If you look at their par charts will show you that it's not for a 5x5.
But
5x5 is just an awful lot of space. I mean, that's even not really enough for a 4x4, but so it's probably enough for like 12 and a half square feet, but not for like 25 square feet. But yeah.
But the only complaint
you're growing plants under it anyways. I mean,
they're all vegging. They're all vegging green.
Yeah.
I did have a smaller light that went with it, but it ended up actually shorting out, so I got to return it. It was pretty scary too. Like it would flicker and make that like buzzing noise. So I hurry up and get rid of that before it burned down my house. But
be careful.
Other than that, this one's doing great. It was the smaller one that kind of had like the built-in driver on it, like a plastic box. Yeah, it was kind of.
Yeah.
I pulled that out of there. But everything looks great in here. I'm gonna show you my seedlings real quick.
Sounds good. And then we also got Okie Grower joined us, as well as Chetter Bob. So after you show off those seedlings, I'll let them give their introductions.
Yeah. So these are my solo sips. And all I did was put rocks in the bottom of it, a little hole for the the airflow. Yeah, and I just fill it up every day. I just check it. They've been going through a little container at the very bottom every day.
Nice.
So
perfect.
He calls this Rainbow Bright.
Rainbow Bright, wasn't that a cartoon or something?
They just about done in their solo cups, or are they going to stand there for a lot longer?
Yeah. So with the sip, I would say they could probably stay in there for a while with it being in a sip.
It was a My Little Pony.
I just worry about the roots getting bound up and then kind of being forever permabound, even if you transplant out. But
yeah, they come down through, but they're still going to get bound up a bit inside that first.
I do a root trimming. So once I take them out and when I transplant, I like to do a root trim. Just because I've heard a few people say it kind of boosts the terpenes, makes the plant think it's under attack. So I give it a little bit of a trimming.
It helps it helps the extra roots when you put it into a new pot branch out more. It's like topping the roots.
Yeah.
I've heard somebody say tickle the roots.
It encourages bifurcation in the root. So when you rip it, just like topping a plant does, slightly different mechanism, but yeah.
Well, and even just physically, like if you think about the physical nature of the root, when it's grown into basically a knot in whatever that pot is. If it was a plastic pot, it would be a perfect swirled circle, which we've all kind of seen before. If you get it super root bound, if you just planted that, you can see at your harvest when you pull up the whole root ball that basically stays there, and then everything below it grows out. But it still kind of always gets stuck like that. And if you do like the tickle the roots, where you kind of break them up or cut them, you can see when they open out where it physically, even if it's broken, new roots start to grow from those tips and they go outward versus just being stuck in that ball. So it's definitely a good idea too. I agree, like you were saying, kind of cut them up a little bit, do whatever you have to do to
we do it usually less in cannabis, but I mean that's really kind of a common technique to score the plug when you're transplanting, to pull out the smaller pot and take a knife and cut vertically along the edges of the sort of bound roots that you're about to transplant in.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's why, because it's common for in that kind of a setting to let them become root bound before you do a transplant.
Yeah, and then you have to sort of rescue them because you're running a giant nursery with thousands of silly little plants, so you can't get to them all as soon as you can. And it's not as important because they're, not being grown for maximum production in a cannabis facility.
It's semi-important though, because a lot of consumers get fucked because they'll buy like unknowingly they'll go buy a tomato that has like the most flowers on it because it looks pretty, and they think that's better for them. And I was actually, that Tickle the Roots saying I just picked up was from a non-cannabis gardening YouTube video. I was watching something about the worm castings that I like, and it was this little instructional guide, and it was like you were just talking about, they're planting from a cell where things were root bound, and they showed like the good ones versus the bad ones, but even the best ones, they were breaking up the roots a little bit to prevent that basically growing into that sort of knot.
Yeah, generally, if they're in small containers, you want to avoid buying fruiting plants that are already fruiting, because that's probably a result of having been root bound that triggers the reproductive phase early, and it's not going to become a big, glorious plant.
Exactly. We kind of talked about this, I think, a little bit last week as well, and I might have brought it up because I watched that video, but I want to give Okie Grower a chance to jump in and introduce himself. Cheers, Okie Grower. Welcome.
Yeah, hey guys, what's going on?
Not too much. How you doing?
Pretty good. Trying to share a video here.
There we go. Now I can see you.
See how you flip this.
It's at the top left, up over here. There we go.
Yeah.
And I'll spotlight you.
There we go. That's
Spotlight
my little
forward.
closet here.
Beautiful closet.
Got
I love closets full of plants.
So it's a Siberian Gorilla Mac from Guardian of Lost Terps.
She got tall.
She is definitely lanky.
Yeah, this one stretched. I've got two of them in the same pot down here.
Oh, nice, man. Those are my pots, man. I use those exact same ones.
Yeah, the city pickers.
Hell yeah, city
Yep.
pickers.
And then see, this one here didn't stretch near as much. And then I got this one here. And I was wondering, is it too late to try and super crop this down so I can drop my lights back down?
It's almost, what week are you into?
It's like day 18 since flip.
Yeah, you probably
Are they still growing?
No, I think they finally stopped.
Then it's pretty much too late to, you got to super crop them while they're still growing so they have the energy to turn around. Otherwise they'll just stay
over. Yeah.
Over. Yeah.
Day 18, they still might be going a little bit. I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
So if you wanted to,
if they are still growing, then you could still super crop. They don't need a lot more oomph, but if there's nothing left in that bolt, they won't turn around and they won't sort of bulk up those knuckles.
So there's a happy medium. You can just like tie a string and like pull them over a little bit. Not completely super crop, do like a low stress train kind of, just pull it diagonal
over, kind of like that.
Yeah, just like
if
that.
You threw another scrog on top. I hate to make it even messier.
Well, yeah, that would. Yep.
The other thing is, it looks like they're outside. It looks like they're outside the footprint of the fixture. You got the tallest one sort of around the edges. Is that the case, or are they right under the middle? I'm trying to see.
They're pretty much right underneath the lights. It's kind of hard to see my closet.
You can kind of move the tallest colas out towards the edge, away from sort of the middle of the light. You don't need to necessarily get it much lower, just sort of out from the hot spot under the middle.
It looks like you got room above the lights. Raise the lights up a little now.
That's a good point too.
Yeah,
I don't think it's worth to raise the light. You lose so much at the bottom. I think it's better to just bend them over.
Okay, yeah, good point. Yep.
I would just bend them over, man.
And those tops, they'll get a little foxtailed, but to be honest with you, they end up being mostly fine. They might be a little bit airier buds, but I think it's worth it to sacrifice like that, the top being perfect for the other 3/4 of that branch being decent to good bud.
Yeah.
Is there a fourth wall that comes in and closes up this space, or is it open on one side?
No, it's open. Here, I got my clothes over here.
Yeah, then you don't want to raise the lights any higher than you have to, because the higher you raise the lights, the more light.
I mean, this is only probably 34 inches from my lights. They're all 100 watt LEDs.
Yeah, so as long as they're outside directly under the fixture, I think they'd be fine at that height. In fact, they probably wouldn't be getting very much light that close to the fixture if they're outside. but if they're right under it, so maybe you could just pull them off to the sides, and that would be probably just fine.
Okay.
I think you're going to crush
Sweet.
it. As far as like somebody who's doing this in their closet, you're going to be very happy with the amount of bud that you're pulling out of there. I don't know how many grows you've got under your belt in this spot, but I mean, you've got good
This
airflow
is,
because you've got that open wall.
Yeah, well, I've got a exhaust fan going to the attic here.
It's nice to be able to pull it out and just dump it out.
Yeah.
Straight up.
And then I've also got this. This is a bag seed right here in the little 3-gallon. It's all super soil. And I've got these little, I just noticed this earlier. I think I might have overwatered it.
Yeah, I was gonna say because it's not overfed if it's only 3 gallons of super soil, in my opinion. 3 gallons,
Yeah.
that's about as big as your plants are
I've been
gonna
using
be in a soil, in my experience. Maybe a 5 or a 7 gallon pot, you
Yeah.
probably get them more similar to the size of that city picker next to it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, appreciate all the help.
Yeah, no problem, man.
We're happy to have you on. Do you have any more questions before you run? And we're gonna give then I think Cheddar Bob will be up next.
Oh yeah, I think I'm good, guys.
All right, thank you so much, Okie. And you can hang around if you'd like, or if you want to jump out, you're more than welcome. But
I'm gonna jump out.
Plenty of room. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
get going.
Doc's got to go. So go ahead and give us your final thoughts and shout out, Doc.
Yeah, just remind everybody to join us in the New Year's Grow Challenge. Starts January 1st, free to sign up. Everybody's welcome. It's great for new growers, great for experienced growers, lots of cool prizes, and everybody gets to grow together and have fun. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday, a wonderful Christmas. I think we're back next week. Isn't that the 26th?
I'll be traveling, but I'll probably get it live for you guys. If I'm not able to be here, I can definitely make sure that you guys are still able to.
Yeah, I'm wondering what my 26th is going to look like. I mean, I like to be here if I can, so I'll see everybody then. And if not, then I guess it would be the 2nd, which is like the day after the New Year's Grow Challenge starts. So don't forget about the New Year's Grow Challenge, everyone. And enjoy your holidays, enjoy your plants, grower love. Thanks to all our special guests and everybody else.
Thank you.
Peace out, Doc.
Have a good night.
Have a great week. And maybe we'll see you next week or in 2 weeks from now. But definitely look forward to having you back whenever that is.
Grower love.
All right, Cheddar Bob, been hanging out in the cut patiently over there. You're all bundled up, but normally we've got some sort of superhero. And what's the hoodie we've got today? Weed tastes good. I agree.
Yep, little Miles, and then we got, who do we got? We got Star Wars, and then we got our Fantastic Four. So,
all righty. Now that
there's always something. Yeah.
It looks like you cleared out one of these tents over here.
I did. I cleared out the cherry pie about 10 days ago, I'd say. So that was taken. Well, here, I'll get you a little bit better picture here. But it's already starting to re-veg. Let's see. And then this is the 9-pound hammer, which is starting its fade. I'm gonna chop that on Thursday. But looking pretty good. But over here is what I really wanted to show people is this is the Bruce Banner number 3.
Nice.
I got 3 of these clones in here.
I like it.
And I think the last time I was on, these were really small, maybe even just transplanted. And you can see just, once they hit the soil and those roots lock on, they just explode. And they're super branchy and
Yeah, super branchy. It looks
lanky.
cool as shit.
Yeah.
A lot of work in there stripping that. Good job, man.
Yeah. Well, small days make big weeks, right? So as long as
Sure.
you just like keep up on it just a little bit at a time. I mean, by the time you're ready to flip, it ends up looking like that. And I mean, I still have a little bit more left to do. At the end of flip, I'm going to take these lowers and clone them just because they're not going to produce anything. So, but yeah, up top is looking good. So this was the tent that I had the mealy bugs in, right? And I have no signs of mealy bugs any longer,
Nice.
which is fantastic.
What
And
do you attribute that to?
oh well, partially you guys, and probably more so Matthew, just to be specific. You know, I think I bugged him. I think I've been bugging him about mealy bugs for Christ, like 2 years. Probably. And yeah, but I used wettable sulfur. And then as before the next treatment, I did like a 3-week separation. I used the mealy bug destroyers and green lacewing eggs. And I did 2 rounds of the mealy bug destroyers with 1 round of like 2,500 lacewing eggs. And man, I'll tell you, they smoke showed like 95% of the visible mealy bugs. And I'm not, and I don't want people to get like, this wasn't like 1 or 2 mealy bugs. This was like an infestation, like in the flowers, like everywhere. They were everywhere. They were on my scrog screen. They just blew up.
Those green lacewing, I love those green lacewing eggs because they're so cheap. It's like,
yeah,
give me 4 times the amount I need. I'll take them.
Yeah, they are inexpensive. You know, it's just the shipping. You know, being way out here on the East Coast, like, I mean, it's like $50 to ship from the West Coast, you know, because it's overnight and blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
But, so that kind of
they eat themselves.
They do. I mean, I was blown away. Like they got big. They got legit big. I was like, holy shit. I've never seen the larvae that large before. But yeah,
they were well fed. You had an infestation. Shit.
I really did.
That's
my first infestation I've ever had in 20 years of growing. I've never had any, like, I've had a couple pests here and there, but not to the numbers that the mealy bugs were. And man, like I lost two harvests to the mealy bugs before I finally figured out a pattern, or like, you know, how to treat different stages of their life. So yeah, I use some Dr. Zymes, lots of saponins, lots of J plant speakers, Keia powder there, soap nuts, yucca, aloe,
the kitchen sink,
so
the beautiful route of IPM, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, well, between the 3 weeks of wettable sulfur.
I like that though, because all those things that you're saying are all beneficial to your soil too. On top of them being some sort of a pesticide, or at least slowing down, it's also beneficial to your soil too. So that's badass.
Yeah, and thank you. Yeah. But we are in day 5 or 6 in the flower of the Bruce Banner, and this thing stretches like 30%. So I mean, these will probably end up being like 18 or 20 inches. So I dropped my support trellis down a little bit, which is just a 3-inch U-line grid wall panel.
Do you get any? You said it's a clone, the Bruce Banner. You've run it before, I presume.
I have. I've run it 2 other times, and this is stuff that I pressed out on my IG, Chetter Bob 13. And it's pressing out at in between 30 and 33% from flower rosin. It's
really good.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a gusher. It's crazy.
Does it have any strawberry notes at all? Because I know that's like one of the things that people are looking for.
It does. It has at the exhale. You definitely get that almost like strawberry potpourri. It's not like eating a wild strawberry, you know, that big burst of subtle acidity. But you definitely have that lighter red fruit exhale on it. So yeah, and then the gas, you know, definitely has some. It's in a sweet it's a great plant. I don't even know what to say about it because for so many years, I heard Bruce Banner 3, and I thought it was, like maybe one of the hype strains, like cookies and stuff like that is flooding everywhere. So I never gave it much thought. And then when Tony did the Bob's Cheddar and used that as the mother, he sent me the clone when I tested that for him. So I knew what I was looking at because I had never grown the Bruce Banner or the space cheese. So
Who's Tony for the listeners who don't know?
Tony is Mr. Toad at Filial Feel on Instagram, and Mr. Toad here on YouTube. Yeah, he's a good dude. He highly knowledgeable. I mean, I love the guy. He does a lot for our community as far as knowledge and passing on things that he knows. Because the guy seems to know a little bit of something about everything. It's pretty amazing.
It's cool that he's sharing good genetics and that you're enjoying them, and it's a gusher. I mean, that percentage of return on flower rosin is fantastic. I personally love flower rosin. I know some people are like, just kind of are too bougie for flower rosin. They'll only do hash rosin. And,
it's hot. I thought rosin was the bougie option. Am I wrong?
So it is, but hash rosin is like the headiest, bougiest of them all.
I see.
If you're doing flower rosin, that's like the peasant stuff to some people. I personally think it tastes great, but that's a shit ton of packs over there.
Yeah, I have like 28 or 29 of Tony's cultivars. I'm supposed to be running a Triangle Kush cross with space cheese tester for him, but
you're too busy screwing around on the show.
Yeah, screwing around on the show, but we just got told that we got to move out of our house, so I don't have the time to get a flower cycle in a proper veg. So now I got to figure out a way to move these beds and restart at a new place.
Yeah, shit. It's hard to load the U-Haul when you've got fucking beds that are probably, I don't know, close to 1,000 pounds.
No, they're not 1,000 pounds. No way.
It's
not even close. I can pull this thing around the room with the correct spell of curses and swears.
Pulling's the right option. I saw Mr. Soul doing that the other day on a video, and he had like a shoelace attached, but he was just doing it with pots. And a lot of people out here in California, I've seen this personally, fill up U-Hauls full of plants in smaller pots, and you're like, oh, I'm moving, so I can't grow. I'm like, so many people just fucking keep growing all the way right up till they move, and they just throw all the plants in, shut that door, and I've seen some people go a few hours in those things. They're resilient plants. I'll say that. I'm going to add Potent Ponics to the chat because he just jumped into the Zoom. But definitely a lot harder to do it. Moving to bed.
Dry out a little bit before you got to move it. You'll be fine.
That's the way. The water is most of the weight for sure.
Yeah, and then I want to show everyone these. Tony had mentioned these to me like about a year ago or so. I had posted them on my Instagram page. But these things are like heavy duty clone trays, folks. These things here.
I saw you talking about these. Gotta love heavy duty stuff like this.
Yeah,
and
these
they're
are
expandable.
Yeah, they come.
It's
like
awesome.
This has two things. This has like one insert, but it comes with two. And I'd say those are about 8 inches or so. So you can get some really tall clones in here. This is a medium size clone tray too. So it's like 20 by, 11 or so. But yeah, these things are killer, and they don't get all flimsy and breakable and stained and dirty like these guys, right? Everyone's familiar with these domes, how they, once you've used them for a while, they start getting yellow and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, early grow trays, I think is what I typed in. Then we got the Bruce Banner mom and a cherry pie mom.
What are the solo cups? Are those seeds? You popping some new seeds?
Yeah, those are the Triangle Kush, but they never came up. So I think I don't know.
It was meant to be because you're about to move, like you were mentioning.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, I think it was like fate, karma, whatever we want to call it.
I want to give Steve a chance to jump in. Welcome, Steve from Potent Ponics.
What's up, guys? How's it going?
Hey, Steve.
Doing good.
Doing
I
that.
changed. I put on a sweatshirt because Spartan Grown was too tripped out by my. No, really, it just got cold, so it wasn't for Spartan's viewing pleasure. But I'm in tie dye now. I think it's more easy on Spartan. But welcome. Good to have you back. Anything new and exciting going on over there?
Appreciate that, Jack.
I'm working on some cool new projects for next year. Other than that, nothing too crazy. Just kind of everything right before the holidays. Usually, like most of the farmers I'm working with, we have a meeting on Monday for next week, and then it's kind of just get everything done enough to where you guys can take off halfway through the week and run on a skeleton crew. So, I think a lot of places are like that this particular week where they're just kind of, not doing a whole hell of a lot and just kind of an autopilot until next week.
That's when the bugs come creeping in. You got to keep diligent. Somebody's got to crop scout or something. No one wants to do it. You got to find the one person who doesn't celebrate the holiday to come in and take care of the garden or whatever it is.
This is where it's benefits to have a diverse group of people in your place. You got different holidays being celebrated, different days.
Yeah, Hanukkah was like last month.
Yeah, see, it's all good. I did want to mention what asked Matthew what his thoughts were on that weird paper that was in that post that you had highlighted earlier about trying to link hypermesis syndrome to hop latent viroid, which was just bizarre.
Yeah, I didn't see your comments in the when I was full screen sharing the screen. I have taken a look at that article, and if people want, I can quickly share it here. But honestly, it's surprising. I'm going to put it very nicely. I'm very surprised that the individual who wrote that, who has an orchid ID and everything, should be a more qualified person than even myself to say such things. Tenuous, really tenuous. Doesn't give any examples as to why. Totally speculation. Doesn't give any evidence or anything of that accord. Just says, it's sort of weird that we found this hop latent viroid in cannabis all of a sudden, and then people started getting hyperemesis. Maybe they're connected, and I'm just like, how physio. Oh well, that's actually not true. Now that I'm saying this, they said that because I should get the article up here, but because the terpenes and cannabinoids, because like the trichomes were lesser or something, that means that the compounds might be more harmful or something about the mitigating components of the plant's physiology or chemistry are now like lesser in some way. Yeah, there we go. And I thought that was very
I love that it's titled Fool's Gold.
Very, very cute. You gotta get that buy-in. You gotta get people citing your paper. You gotta make it funny and pithy.
Really strange paper that came out recently.
Yeah. Do you want to? I think if you control F trichomes or something.
Those references, like what could they even have referenced to make that connection?
Those references are for like other statements that I believe the guy's name is Oscar has made.
What was the question?
He says the resin. So right here next to the orange right there, the resin also acts as a barrier to protect it from disease, insects, and other debris. In the worst case scenario, hop latent viroid prevents this sticky resin from fully developing on the plant, resulting in small buds appearing like plain leafy material. In the best case scenario, all is well until about the last 4 weeks of bud flowering, when healthy normal trichomes rapidly start to become wilted in appearance. Right. One could theorize that any nutrients, pesticides, or fungicides sprayed on the foliage by the grower becomes absorbed in greater concentrations because this Important THC-rich resonance barrier is not present, likely directly affecting potency and purity. I just feel like that's really tenuous.
You're growing mids, kid, and that's giving
Yeah.
people CHS. So
Yeah.
cut it the fuck out.
Look at the photos though, like, you know.
Well, it's just like a. I mean, man, I really wish Dr. MJ was here to back us up here, but like, I feel like it kind of goes without saying, like, that's not how
That works.
it works. No.
It could be
Like,
the dankest bud ever, and if you spray it with Eagle 20, I don't care the resinous THC content. I'm not fucking smoking it, okay? Like,
yeah,
that's such a weird claim, and that whole paper is so off base. And like I said, what are those references? Not because like those papers are probably fine, but like what could you even pull to make the types
Right.
of claims or to begin to start to do that types of research? It's just like they had a high thought, this researcher, and they're like, I'm gonna put this out there and see if anybody challenges it. And I don't know, maybe it's this early research and they're hoping, digging, but
publish or perish, I guess. What's the title? Fool's Gold what?
Hold on. I'll pull it back up. 2 seconds. There we go. Fool's Gold, diseased marijuana and cannabis hyperemesis syndrome.
Okay. I just want to check something really quickly because this gentleman's name is Oscar Armando Durantes. And well, look at this. From now I have my own reason to be embarrassed because from San Diego State University.
Representing.
Heyo, yeah. And let me just check here. SCSU.
You can legally smoke the
Army
good shit. I'll just say that.
I don't want to. I'm not going to dox this person, but I mean they have a public email. But yeah, I was just curious who they're affiliated with and if there's like a department or like are they a plant physiologist? Do they even?
I wonder what Ethan Russo would say about this. He is probably the person that knows more about this hyperemesis than anybody else that's like alive right now.
Yeah, right. I mean, I still, for those who are curious about my opinion on it, I still think that much like what we say about dudding doesn't tell you anything. Dudding is just symptoms. Multiple things, multiple causes can have the same symptoms. So like similarly, I think CHS, the vomiting a lot, which is what hyperemesis is, can be caused by all kinds of things. It can be caused by taking too much THC, perhaps, or like having a bad reaction because you personally, had too much for your system to handle. That's totally valid. It could perhaps be because of pesticides. Absolutely, pesticides, contaminated products can cause you to be hyperemetic.
Food poisoning. I mean,
food
there's a lot of
poisoning,
reasons
right?
people. And you don't know, like you go to that whatever, let's say fast food restaurant every single day, and then the one time it fucking gets you. Like there's sometimes, but I do believe that CHS exists. And sorry, not to cut you off.
Oh no, but you're totally right.
But what's bullshit is if you go to a doctor like a ER and you took a large amount of edibles, they're gonna tell you if you're over like what is it, 15 micrograms or whatever, or 10 micrograms in your blood, that you have hyperemesis syndrome, regardless of whether or not, simply because of the amount of micrograms when they test you. So it's like they use that as a blind definition just because you happen to take a lot of weed, but you might not have any issue at all. And I've had them tell me that when I had blood work done about some other issues that I was dealing with at the time, and they told me, "Oh, you need to cut back," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, no.
Yeah, it's I think that response is doctrinal. I think that medically they're like hospitals have like a doctrinal response to if somebody comes in with cannabis and they do this is what we have to tell them. Kind of like if I live in California, so maybe that's a Californian thing. I know
it's not just California. It's bullshit. Tell them, Tao. What's the theory there? You eat cannabis to get younger, right? You're doing just fine with
what? Oh.
I feel like not to like change topics too much. I want to bring Tao into the conversation and just bring up the fact that Steve mentioned they were saying he had too much cannabis in his blood. But I feel like when Tao doesn't have a cookie and he gets cranky. I've been around him when he doesn't have enough trim to make his edibles. And I know enough people that use cannabis. If they don't get enough of it, it almost like not to make us seem like addicts. I do think it's a medicine more than anything, or even like a nutrient. So I just wanted to throw Tal in there and give you an option to talk a little bit about maybe your thoughts on having too much cannabis in your.
I think you should get as much in as possible, because what if you don't have some at some point? At least they'll be in you for a few days. But more than that, like when you work hard and then the next day, if you eat an edible before you go to sleep, the next day you're ready, fresh, ready to go. I found that when I'm short on the edibles and don't have it for like a couple days, I start feeling shit that I used to not feel ever. So that's one thing. And you know, like if someone comes into the doctor hammered all the time, they might say, you know, you should cut down on the alcohol. So that's like an example of maybe that, like but yeah, there's not like don't even get me started on the federal government. It's still scheduled and all that. It's just a no-brainer. That's why I am so suspect of the government, because they knew this since like the 1930s that cannabis was the best substance in the world for your body, and they just did the opposite. But I don't want to digress.
I want to say that for the paper we were referencing earlier, the Fool's Gold one, under the footnotes, I'm here on the NCBI research or forum, or where this is published, one of the places, I think. Under the footnotes, it says for provenance and peer review, it says commissioned, internally peer reviewed. So, you know, I don't know necessarily if this is getting, you know, a more wider look at some of the assessments here.
Do you have his kids read it?
His colleagues, hey, everybody I worked with on this, what do you think about this?
Yeah,
good, right?
Those are the people at the Halloween party. They were all doing shrooms that night.
I'll give my students an A if they read this.
Speaking of things, you know, that are authoritative and wrong, you know, apparently the DCC came back about the Emerald Cup controversy, and they had the gall and temerity to say that they didn't conduct any confiscation at all, which was
documented on video.
It was kind of sus when they had bagfuls of confiscated stuff in see-through bags that they were holding. I mean,
yeah, I really don't understand that response. It's like
door gifts.
It didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
They were all samples, right?
Look right here.
Those are door prizes.
The government, the little experience I have with the government, they generally just change words and they call it something else. No, that's not confiscated. That was seized.
That's what I thought. You know, that's exactly what my first thought was.
It was voluntarily given because they didn't know their rights, and we asked it for it, and they gave it to us. So by technicality, we didn't break the law.
It wasn't by force, right? Confiscation is what we do it by force, but we just seized it, right? Yeah, I had the same sort of thought. Was like maybe they're using a technical definition of the word confiscation, but I don't think that's going to win any hearts or minds on the matter.
And this is loose flour in a bag that was being held
and
by
concentrate.
And maybe he can go get it back then.
Yeah, so they're either knowingly lying, or
yes,
you know, there's no other thing, or they're trying to cover up for what their guys did.
That's not a very good job covering up.
I think
it's very bad.
See, all of the above.
Hey, this is a little totally off subject.
Those guys kept it all.
Did anyone hear about those monkeys over in India that have killed a whole village of dogs?
Yeah.
And now they're going after the kids. Matthew, you heard about that?
I didn't hear about the last part. I heard about the like, was it like baboons or something?
I don't think it was baboons. I think it was a little bit smaller breed.
Yeah,
monkey.
like a lesser monkey kind of.
Yeah, like a smaller simian.
Some sort of simian, but they, I guess, like the story goes that some dogs killed some baby simians, and then they came back and they decided to just drag them off of buildings and things, and that's how they killed the dogs, and that was
so
brutal.
This is a population.
Not to change subject to something more positive, but Spartan Grown has to get going in about 15 minutes, so I want to give him a chance to give his final thoughts and shout outs.
Well, that's not positive either. We don't want Spartan to go.
Yeah, seriously.
But he's going to
But-
plug the Michigan
but
Bros
there's
Grow Show
more.
where we get 2 more hours of fun content.
There's more. Thanks, Jack. Thanks everybody on the panel. Thanks, chat. As always, this was a really nice, informative show. I especially love the last 10 minutes myself. I always love to poke the government a little bit when I can. And what's going to come out is their excuse is going to say it wasn't them. It wasn't us. That was somebody acting like us, but it wasn't us. So anyhow, I just want to say, happy holidays, everybody. I don't know when the show is going to be, so I'm just going to say happy holidays, cover all the holidays. And I'll be on the Michigan Bros Grow Show here starting in about 15 minutes. So I'll catch you guys there. Grows
Cheers,
love.
Spartan. There
Fuck
used to be a
the MCMA.
commercial.
Peace
Be
out,
like,
Spartan.
Happy Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa to you.
Christmas. Festivus.
Festivus.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cool.
But yeah, fuck the MCMA. I was talking over him and he did say fuck the MCMA in case it wasn't clear, because we all know fuck the MCMA. And hopefully Michigan is able to keep fighting the good fight.
So what were you you were gonna make a point about this with the monkeys?
No, it was more of just a statement question. If you guys had heard about that,
Sounds
Yeah,
like a
it's
good
brutal.
part of a movie to me.
it's insane. So it's a population of like 4,000 people. The monkeys went through the entire town and killed every dog, puppy in the town. Like over 300 dogs gone.
It just seems a
And,
little
like,
off topic for our show. As interesting as the story is, it's a little grim and dark, and I'm personally not that type of person who wants to spread more of this story out there. It's so unrelated to anything. I thought there was gonna be some cannabis tie-in, but since there's not,
What are you
at all-
smoking on, Cheddar Bob?
Yeah, let's hear that.
It's actually a land race from the town next to that one
Ah,
in India. So
there you go.
that's how I was going to tie it in.
That's right.
Which town is that?
Ganjar Bree or something like that. Ganjar Bree, I think it was.
Where did you get this landrace cannabis from?
I don't even remember.
That's the best kind, right? Just shows up
Yeah.
in your life like a mystery.
Yeah.
so-
Northern India, I think.
So this is related to what we were saying earlier. I did a little bit of a Google search, and Cursory Search showed me a SoundCloud podcast. This is for the BMJ Talk Medicine account, where they talk about hyperemesis syndrome with Oscar Armando Durantes. And in the description, they say that I think this is the Journal of Investigative Medicine podcast. Editor-in-Chief Richard McCallum speaks with Oscar Armando Durantes, an archaeologist and alumnus of San Diego State University. Durantes has experience as DEA witness in medical marijuana cases and won the first medical marijuana case in the U.S. military when he was a member of the U.S. Army Preventative Medicine Network in 1999. So that's interesting. That is
It's interesting that he's an archaeologist making these fucking medical claims about hyperemesis. That's interesting. And the fact
is
that he's on
interesting.
BMJ makes sense because the link Steve Potenponics sent earlier in the Zoom chat is from jim.bmj.com. And I think that was the original link to the article that he shared earlier.
Yeah, so I haven't looked at this, but maybe he has something legitimate. I don't want to be too out of hand here, but I just don't see how it is. So I'm curious to learn more.
I love that people have out of the box thinking and theories. I just think that there's very limited, because I've looked into a lot of the cannabis research, medical, positive and negative, and I try to be as objective as possible. As much as I know I have a clear bias, I'm a fan of cannabis. I think that it helps me and many others. But it's interesting to see if there's well done science that's making claims, to look into them and be fair about it, because everything kind of has some drawback at some point. But from his personal background and the limited number of references that I saw directly relating to a connection between those two things, like the whole correlation is not causation thing is a great thing to bring up. So maybe they found some correlations, but that doesn't mean that there's a cause, right? So
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like, I mean, sometimes research is wrong, and sometimes the speculative stuff doesn't pan out. I feel like that's what's going to happen. But the intellectually honest answer is maybe we'll see another bit of research on it, but I don't think so. The chances, I mean, yeah, the viroid would have to have some sort of effect. I mean, he's stating that the lack of trichomes or wax or whatever, makes the plant more of a accumulator of certain problematic compounds, and that those are causing it. So in a way, he's actually making the same argument that we are. He's just saying that the viroid makes it more problematic, but I don't think you can make much product with a stunted out cannabis plant a lot of the time. Sometimes it's even not symptomatic. So I mean, it's just a weird thing to say. And I think that's probably all I should.
And then to also say, it also might be that pesticides more readily absorb into it, and then it could be pesticide related. That would mean that it's not cannabis related. It's more of a pesticide problem, not a cannabis problem. Which that's been an issue with a number of other things. I mean, there are hundreds or thousands of products that you shouldn't and cannot spray on cannabis because they're dangerous and cause problems for humans to consume. So I think it's interesting to bring up, but I don't think that there is a lot of weight that'll be held to that behind that paper. That's just my unprofessional opinion, but we'll see if it stands the test of time.
Mine too. Yeah, but thanks for bringing that up, Steve. That is an interesting topic to bring up. I don't think a lot of people were talking about it. So
I'm curious to change topics a little bit for the last few minutes, just an update from Tao, because I know things in New York. My wife was watching something called like Cannabis or something on TV in the other room when I walked over to grab my sweatshirt, and they were talking about the legalization in New York. So I'm curious if you have any kind of thoughts or updates on things. How have things been going over there, and what's it actually look like?
Well, when after they announced it, you could smoke cannabis anywhere you could smoke cigarettes in New York. So that just the whole city smells like marijuana. So which is awesome. And yeah, they've been having pop-up events everywhere. You're allowed to have 3 ounces on you at all times. So no one's bothered these pop-up events that I've noticed so far. There's people in like Washington Square Park to put up a table and have jars that people come, get shit. So, but in the real legality of it all, the first thing that the new governor did after Cuomo got kicked out was she pushed for medical patients to be able to grow their own. And if they couldn't, they could get a caregiver, which could grow that for them, which is awesome. But if you're a caregiver and get another patient, that only ups your plant count to 1 more plant. For some reason, they chose that.
Yeah, you said that. But I think they feel like, 1 plant per person. They just assume that that's going to be enough.
But
it's ignorant, but that's how they're doing it.
It wasn't set in stone yet. I actually have to go look at the updates because it's getting close to they had like a 60-day commentary period or whatever. So that's what was happening with that. And then you're not like normal people aren't supposed to be growing rec weed until after they open dispensaries for at least a year is what the original wording was. But as they go through, she commissioned this OCB, I think it's called. I should know more, but a cannabis board, basically. It's going to make the rules. So they're going to change the wording and, go step by step. So that's where it's at right now. But nobody's bothering anybody. The cops are like, probably they didn't want to bother with it to begin with. So
I've heard that from a lot of police forces and the NYPD in particular before things changed, that they didn't want to deal with that. Most of the time, cannabis people were peaceful, and oftentimes it was more of like a cash grab, like when they were doing raids and things like that. But it's good to hear that they are actually respecting the law, because sometimes when things change, they don't know exactly how it changed. Now it just seems like it's so open that they don't necessarily have any methods to go after you, and so they're not going to. And that's a beautiful thing. So big change in New York, because for many, many years it was quite a big problem for people over there. And I'm curious what it'll do to value of the plant and availability. Hopefully more patients have access, because if they're already talking about needing to have the right to home grow for medical people, I don't know if they have like a 10 medical things list, or if it's pretty easy to get on to the medical, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. So I'm really happy for New York.
We've had medical for quite a while now, and they've been continually getting a little more lax with that too. At first it was no flour, then they had this crazy thing where it was just ground flour, and I thought it was because if you get pulled over, like, and you got buds, they know it's not from the medical dispensary, but like that didn't make sense. So now they have like anything, I guess. You get buds now too. But and yeah, it's just like anywhere else. If you got $150, you probably get a medical card from somebody. You know what I'm saying? It's all about the money. So same thing here in New York.
They want the
You
money for
want
sure.
more.
But the one thing I wanted to say before we go into our final thoughts and shout outs is if you can call and write, because oftentimes when they get that letter, they're not going to remember like that it's you in particular. They're going to think two people reached out to them asking for, home growers' rights or whatever it is that's important to you in your state and in New York in particular. Just making sure like, hey, in this comments, I think that instead of doing one extra plant per person, maybe we should go on like square footage or amount of weight that I can harvest or whatever it is, something that you think that's more logical. Give them an idea, maybe even go in and, knock on one of these people's doors and talk to them face to face if you're able to, because you can make the difference and, make positive change for like we talked a little bit about last week, Dennis Perone and some of the people in California, how they kind of set the stage and hoping to reach out to those guys to get them on and talk a little bit more about how it happened. So hopefully we can inspire more positive change for states that are legalizing and trying to do it properly, because sometimes it doesn't necessarily go that well. But each state has their own ways of doing things. So we'll hopefully be able to influence it at least some small amount to benefit all the cannabis users and growers out there. With that said, I want to give my guests that joined us so graciously tonight the first chance to do their shout outs. So first, I'll start with Steve of Potent Ponics.
Hey, you can find me at the Growing with Fishes podcast on your favorite podcast app. We actually hit over 1 million views on YouTube this year, which was super cool. And we had just a bigger year than we've had before. So that was a lot of fun. You can also find me on Instagram, Potemponics, or if you're interested in the class that I teach, you can check that out over at apmjclass.com.
Thank you so much for joining us. And that's pretty badass. 1 million views. That's a lot of fucking views. So congratulations. Comes with a lot of hard work and great content being put out there. I'm some of those 1 million views. I've been a lot of them, maybe 1,000 or something. I've watched lots of those videos. So I contributed to the total, but there's a great community behind it. And we're thankful that you joined ours this evening. Thanks again. And next up, we got Cheddar Bob.
Hey, I am Cheddar Bob. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, and Cannabis. And that's Cheddar Bob with 2 T's, not D's. And I have like 47 views. So I have a ways to go to catch up, Steve. Yeah, but that's me. I think everyone's fairly familiar with me at this point.
You never know. We always get new listeners every show. It's surprising, but there are new people out there that come each week. So cheers to them. And thank you for listening. And you'll know Cheddar Bob for being one of those guys who's into that whole avocado tech / fruit drop theory, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So cheers to you and all the crew up over there in Maine. Next up, we got Weed Never Killed Kenny, formerly Kenny Biss. Thanks for joining us for the first time.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. It's been fun. Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. I got a YouTube channel, working on it, but I gotta start somewhere. I do join Fumador and the Flavor Show every once in a while. So is Phonics. I'm one of those viewers too, Potent. So other than that, like I said, Instagram and YouTube. Everybody have a great day.
It's great having you. Thank you so much for joining us. And next up, we got Okie Grower. Okie, you got the mute button. There we go.
Oh, hey, yeah. Appreciate you guys letting me come on. Hey, find me on Instagram at Okie Grower. That's about it, really.
I like it. Short and simple. Thank you so much for joining us and showing off some of the garden. It was great having you, and always appreciate any of the listeners who are willing to show off the garden or even just come on and talk a little bit. So thank you to all the guests who joined us this week. And next up, we've got Matthew Gates.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, Cheddar Bob. Sometimes I'm like, oh, should I say the same thing over and over again? I guess the big thing is to mix it up. So for those who don't know, I am Matthew Gates. I write at the Skunk Magazine. I'm a staff writer there. I own a consulting group, Sentinel Consulting. That's me. And I help people out with their cannabis and other crop problems. And if you're interested in some of the research and plant health topics that I like to divulge, You can find a lot of that information on my Zenthanool YouTube channel, where you can again find that Viroid intro, as well as on my Instagram and Twitter at SyncAngel, where I share a lot of really heady and informative research about plant health, physiology, pest dynamics, and things like that. So check it out, and I'm sure you'll learn something very interesting.
And
Absolutely.
Matthew, I'm going to jump in real quick. Matthew also has a Patreon. I subscribe to it. I suggest everyone listening go subscribe to it. He has a bunch of additional information that on there that he doesn't always give away for free on all of these shows. You know, $1 a month, $12 a year, less than your coffee costs, and helps him out for all the wonderful information he gives us. So I'm done.
And as a fellow content creator, I will say, even just like $1 or whatever it is here and there, it just makes me more like, oh shit, somebody paid. Now I've got to put out more content, or like better content, and do something, you know, good and beneficial to the community. So it just makes it easier to sit down and dedicate that time. And definitely appreciate all that you do for the community, Matthew. You put out amazing content and continue to do so. So the back catalog is amazing, but I agree, if you can, even just $1 a month, support on Patreon. And last, I think everybody's already done theirs. So last and certainly not least, myself, Jack Greenstock, as you see behind me here on the logo as I lean off to the side. You can find me on Instagram, where I haven't posted very much recently, but I'll probably get back into that soon once I start growing again and post some of the older grows that I didn't post yet. Also on Twitter, Jack_Greenstock. You can email me if you'd like, jackgreenstock47@gmail.com. If you want a copy of the book, 50 Strains of Green, you can go to 50strains.com. But with that said, it's a great week. Thank you, everybody, for joining, the guests and the regular panelists, and everybody who listened, both live here on YouTube and afterwards.
Peace out, everyone.
Peace and love. Growers love for Dr. MJ. And also big shout out to Predicative Breeding, Kyle Breeder, Aaron the Grower, ATG Acres, Noah the Grower, who didn't get to join us this week. And I think Russ Brandon, who also joined us earlier, but had to leave. So thank you to all of them, and peace out, y'all. See you next